Welcome to another episode of Your Hope-Filled Perspective, where it's always our goal to restore hope, renew minds, and empower listeners to live in their God-given identity. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Bengtson, and I'm personally excited about the conversation we're going to have today. Today, we're going to be talking about health rules that we've heard, but we need to break for our own good. Scripture tells us in Isaiah 43, verse 19, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I'm making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." Friends, what if I told you that God is doing a new thing in your mind? He wants to change your thinking about your health and wellness. That's where we're going to go today. Today, we're talking with a guest who has been on the program before. You'll remember her, Amy Connell. She's a certified personal trainer and has been in the fitness industry for almost 15 years. She's a recovering step counter. Me too, Amy. And she's an imperfect eater living in God's perfect grace. She's the author of the upcoming release, Your Worthy Body. Find freedom and health by breaking all the rules. I can't wait to read that one. Amy encourages women to strive for balanced, sustainable health and appreciate their God-created bodies, no matter what that looks like. Welcome to the program, Amy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle. I am thrilled to be back.
I'm so glad that you're here. You and I had the opportunity to chat recently when I was on your podcast, Graced Health. So friends, if you have not been following or listening to Amy's podcast, go take a listen, especially to that episode, because we had a great conversation. But I wanted to have you back because I'm all about the importance of paying attention to our thoughts and our thought life. And the fact that God tells us to take every thought captive. And yet I see that's an area where so many of us are not doing a very good job with respect to our health. But Amy, I know that so often our passion comes out of our own hurts and trials and experiences. So will you tell us what led you first to become a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach?
I will. I really I have been part of the fitness. I've enjoyed doing fitness and group fitness and working out my entire life. Some of that early on was to look a certain way. When you talk about coming out of our hopes and our hurts, and so that came maybe not from the best place that I am now, but really I got into leading people in their health because I started off, or when I had my first son, I was in a community of women where we did pre and postnatal yoga and exercise. And that was such a lifeblood for me, having a newborn, being overwhelmed as a mom, probably dealing with some level of a little bit of, depression or baby blues. I don't really know what it was. And then when I moved from where I had my child to the area that I'm in now, it was a young community with a lot of young kids. And I wanted to replicate that. And I wanted to give moms a place to learn that alone and be able about the baby crying and also take care of themselves, because let's face it, when you're a new mom, sometimes, taking care of yourself means being able to brush your teeth and eat while you're nursing the baby. And really, it just led from there. So I started off with the pre and postnatal classes, and then I went into more of a group fitness. And really, I've discovered that I love learning the intricacies behind fitness and what muscles are moving and why it's important. And a lot of that came out of getting injured and tearing my body down more than I realized, and learning along the way that, even though I thought I was doing the right thing, I was actually executing it maybe not in the best way, and took that next step into becoming a personal trainer. So I was a group fitness instructor, formerly known as aerobics, but now we prefer the term group fitness for several years before jumping in and getting my personal trainer certification, and then after that, my nutrition coaching certification. But it was really just this progression of trying to understand and apply that and help others learn that maybe they think they're doing some really great things, as I did, but a long-term perspective, maybe that's not what's best for us.
You have said that you're a recovering step counter. I am too, so we have that in common. But it makes me wonder, in what ways have you seen us take what can be good for our body to the extreme, or where we're no longer doing it for the right reasons?
Oh boy. Yeah, I think that is really common. I do love to joke that I'm a recovering step counter. The genesis of that is moving our bodies in a very natural way is so good for our health. And the science behind the 10,000 steps a day that we hear is actually called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And really, that's just movement that's not exercise. So the intent of encouraging people to get the 10,000 steps a day is just to move. Well, what we do then is we take that, maybe those 10,000 steps, and we go, maybe we have done a really intense strength training session and then still feel like we need to get those 10,000 steps on top of it. And maybe we do if we're just sitting in an office all day long. But again, it's taking something and making it go a little bit further than the science intended. And that's actually a lot of the things that I talk about in Your Worthy Body is like, look, here's what we think is the right thing. We have to work out an hour. This is one rule that I break in the book. I have to get my hour of exercise in. Actually, no. And as a 46-year-old woman at, over 40, I really don't need to have an hour of exercise. And that could be more detrimental to some of my goals than I think it is, because it raises your cortisol. It can tear your body down. I mean, there's a whole lot of different elements to it. I'll spare you all of the science behind it, but that's just one example of things that we get set in our head of like, well, we have to work out a full hour and work out really, really hard every day. So here's another one. I don't know if you've heard the term HIIT, but it's high intensity training. There's a lot of benefits to HIIT training. It's fantastic. And especially as we age, there are even more benefits to it. The caveat is we really should not do that more than 2 to 3 times a week. But we hear, oh, HIIT is great for my heart. HIIT is great for my metabolism. HIIT is great for my skin. Believe it or not, I'm going to do HIIT every single day. And that can be counter to our goals because we're not allowing our body the time for recovery. So those are just a couple examples of that extremism that we think we're doing the right thing, but actually it's not as beneficial as we think it might be.
Why is it so important for us to get our mindset right before we can really take care of our health?
That is something that it took me a really long time to embrace. I think the reason it's important to get our mindset right is that is going to be our fallback when things don't go like we think they're going to. Mm-hmm. You may have the perfect meal that is well balanced and has your vegetables in it and your protein, and it might burn. It might end up charred and you have to pull out a frozen pizza. And yeah, that's disappointing. But going back to the mindset behind it, and I'll get into the mindset here in just a second. Or it might be that you have a really great workout planned and then your child I've experienced this, and then my kid wants to open up and talk. And I have to forego that workout because for me, it's more important to let him talk. You know how boys are, they don't always open up. Mm-hmm. And be able to listen to that and spend that time. And then, then again, rather than beating myself up about it, I go back to that mindset. What's that mindset? It is that, yes, God wants us to take care of our body. Yes, our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, but we take care of our body. So God is calling us to do, and not necessarily even just long-term, but though, yes, including long-term, but maybe even on a short micro basis. Maybe it's, what does he want me to do this afternoon? Or how does he want me to serve other people? And when we can reframe our mindset of, I'm taking care of my body so I can do what I'm called to do, then it allows us to give ourselves grace when the things don't happen, because your schedule, your eating plan will get messed up. I can guarantee that. And remembering that the overall goal is to be able to live out God's calling for us allows us to give ourselves a little grace, to back off a little bit and say, you know what, that's okay. I didn't get my workout in, but I just had this really strong connection point with my son. And that is beneficial in the long run as well. And so rather than focusing and ruminating on the things that didn't go right in the specifics of our health, we can get that broader vision of, overall, I am taking care of my body and I'm able to do what God wants me to do.
What a healthy mindset to have. Friends, we're going to take a real short commercial break, but stick with us to hear Amy share more about health rules we need to break for our own good. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Your Hope-Filled Perspective, where my guest today is Amy Connell, who is a personal trainer and a nutrition coach. And we're talking about health rules that we actually need to break for our own good. Amy, let's get really practical. What are some of those health rules that work against us and against our long-term health?
Well, one of them I spoke about earlier, and that is the concept that we have to get that hour of exercise in. And even as a fitness professional, I kind of blame the fitness profession on that, because when you walk into a class, it starts at 6 a.m. or 9:30 a.m. and it goes for 55 minutes. And if it is 2 minutes short, people are irritated because they did not get the whole 55 minutes in. And then the first group goes out and then the next one comes in, and it's just this rotation. And so we kind of have in our mind that we have to work out that hour. So I kind of already talked a little bit about that one. Another rule is strength training or working out, or here, it will make me bulky. I've heard that before. Oh, I don't want to strength train. I don't want to bulk up. And while I think that everybody needs to find their own way of movement and what brings them joy, the strength training can offer a lot of really great benefits. And the way that you lift weights and move your body, and even that lifting weights might just be your own body weight, by the way, the intent behind it, or not the intent, but the way that you execute it varies. And you don't have to bulk up, but you will be strong, which will enable you to be able to do those things that you love doing, which will enable you to climb that mountain with your child on vacation, or jump in the water and swim, or, that kind of stuff. So, there is some of that, from a food perspective. And I have to admit, personally, I struggle a lot more with food than exercise. I have a chapter in my book called It's All About the Nutrients. And those who like to get kind of geeky about food might be familiar with counting your macronutrients. So your macronutrients are your protein, your carbohydrates, and your fat. And eating the right combination of those can be really helpful particularly in weight management goals, if that is your goal. It's not everybody's goal, but also just in terms of fueling your body well. And while I do think that that is helpful, the other element that I think is important is to remember the nourishment. And I'm not just talking about the nutrients in your kale and your sweet potatoes and your fish. I'm talking about the nourishment from eating a piece of chocolate cake with your best friends, or of course, everything revolves around chocolate for me.
Me too. So go there.
Yeah. Or maybe going out to dinner and having a little bit more than you normally do. You're with family, you're creating these bonding moments. And those are more of the emotional nourishment. And maybe it's, actually letting yourself have something when you're at your Bible study and when you're receiving that spiritual nourishment, enjoying, breaking bread with your friends. I mean, we see over and over in the Bible, Jesus ate with his disciples because eating and enjoying everybody's company is so important. You can execute all of the perfect nutrients you have. And by the way, I don't know why I don't want to do that, but you can if you want to. But if it's taking away that emotional nourishment, that spiritual nourishment from the food and from the space that you're in, is that worth it? Is that what God wants you doing? I believe, yes, eat foods that he gave us. I think that's pretty clear. And we see that several times, even in the first book of the Bible in Genesis. I gave you the plants on the earth, eat them. But he also wants us to enjoy those moments, I believe. And it's okay if your macronutrients are not perfect. And even, keep in mind too, that different experts will tell you different things. So it may not even be that what you're following, maybe that's best for you. Maybe it's not. And so there is this concept, as believers, we talk a lot about legalism. And legalism within the church or within, like, well, I have to do this. And if I will only get God's love if I execute this. Right. And that's the thing that we're trying to break away from. And I think we've gotten a lot into legalism in our health as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Where we feel like if I don't obey all of these rules, then I'm not healthy. And I really disagree with that. And that's where the concept of breaking all of these rules comes from.
What are some of the detrimental mindsets that prevent us from being all God created us to be? Like, one of the ones that I see in working with patients is that I have to be perfect or I'm not going to do it. Or I've broken that, like you said, that perfect setup for the macros or my exercise routine. So I'm just going to go ahead and eat the rest of the chocolate cake.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of those other mindsets, though, that really work against us from appreciating our bodies and who God created us to be?
Yeah, I think that's really common in people, and particularly if maybe you've dabbled a little bit in the fitness world or you've tried an exercise class. I actually interviewed a girl yesterday, and she said, "I came and I tried your class, and I just thought this is not for me," because she didn't feel like she could do all that we were doing. And I think a real hindrance is feeling like we've got to be able to do what other people are doing, which is a comparison trap. And, I think as believers, that's something that we want to stay away from, right? We want to uh, please an audience of one. And so sometimes we get caught comparing ourselves to others and where they are in their fitness or health and where we think we should be. So that's one that I think can be really detrimental is, gosh, well, if, I'm not good enough. I'm not doing it as good as her, so I'm not going to do it. Another thing is thinking, well, I've got to have all my ducks lined up in a row and everything has to go perfectly according to schedule. Well, my schedule was I was going to do this workout on Thursday night at 5:30 p.m. and something happens or maybe traffic is heavy and you're getting home from work and not until 5:45. And it's like, well, now I've missed my window. I'm not going to do it. Actually, just, move for 10 minutes, go for a walk, if you haven't done a HIIT workout recently, do a HIIT workout for 20 minutes, and 20 minutes is enough. And so realizing that things will go off and not according to schedule. And we have to be able to um, deviate from that. So I think staying too focused on what your expectation is from a schedule is another thing. And then finally, maybe just thinking that, well, I don't have the right shoes. I don't have the right clothes. I don't know exactly what to do. And to that person, I would say, put on some shoes, wear whatever you have, and go for a walk. Just start with walking. There's so many benefits to that. But having that, like, I have to have all of these things in order to take the next step can really hold us back as well.
Well, and really what I'm hearing you say is that something is better than nothing. I've got a really busy day today. I had to get up early in order to be ready for these interviews. And so my walk was shortened, but I did walk.
Mm-hmm.
Is it as long as I would normally like? No, but something was better than nothing. And I know myself, and I know the heat and humidity here. And I knew if I didn't get out first thing in the morning, it wouldn't happen. So that's what I'm hearing you say is you don't
Yes,
have
it's really funny that you say that.
yeah, you don't have to have all the
Yeah, well, something, yes, something is better than nothing is said often around my house because we were and actually it's even something that I talk about in the book is like just get out there and do something. And I love that you talk about you know how you are, you know your body. So I knew that I had a really early morning and I planned my week around today being a rest day from working out. So I didn't do anything today. And unfortunately, it's really raining. So I don't even know if I'm going to get a walk in. And if I was counting my steps, it may be that I don't even get, I might not even get to 5,000 steps today. And I'm okay with that because I know that on the whole, I'm active and I'm moving. So something is better than nothing for sure. I love that you did that. We had all the time at my house.
So, what would you say is an actionable step in creating a positive mindset with respect to our health?
I think, I love you talk about taking your thoughts captive. This has been a really important and meaningful verse just in my journey in accepting my health as what is right for me, my body as what is right for me. We haven't talked a lot about body image stuff. I think we did on the previous time that we were together, but the act to me, recognizing when my mind starts to spiral downward and I didn't do this right, I messed up here, I'm not feeling great about how this looks. It's visualizing, just encapsulating that thought, shoving it aside, and saying, I'm taking care of my body and I'm able to do what God is asking me to do.
Mm.
And sometimes I will say on a micro level, I don't do a great job of that. I mean, I have definitely had the times where I've gone out, I've had a cheeseburger and fries. And guess what? My afternoon was pretty crummy because I didn't feel well and I didn't have my energy. So that is not, I don't always take care of my body in the absolute best ways. I now know when the consequence that I will have when I have that. But on the whole, I'm able to say, it's okay that it's not perfect right now because I'm able to do what God is asking me to do. So that would be my first thing is keep that large perspective and remember the end goal. And the end goal is not to have a perfect day on counting your macros on MyFitnessPal and not having just a killer workout because not every workout is great. I mean, sometimes you even get in there and it's a really crummy one and that's just how it goes. And it's that end goal of, am I able to do what God is calling me to do? And it might be that the answer is, I should probably tweak a few things, and then I'll be able to do that even better.
I know so many people who have been on weight loss journeys, many who are on them now, and many need to be on them to help reverse some other health issues. But let's speak to the listener who knows that they need to lose weight, but might be self-sabotaging them? What does that look like? How would they know when they're self-sabotaging themselves?
Oh, that's a really great question. I think self-sabotage can come in a lot of ways, and some of it might be that expectation of perfection, and that, well, you know what? I had that cheeseburger and fries for lunch, and so now the whole day is ruined. And let's have a huge meal, ice cream at the end, add some brownies with it, and I'll start fresh tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I've done it.
Yeah. I think we've all done it. You laugh. I mean, and that guess why I give an example, because I have done that as well. But that's a really easy form of just saying, well, it didn't go exactly like I thought it was going to go. And now, the day's ruined. And then it might be that happens on a Thursday. Well, that day's ruined. Well, the weekend's coming up, and obviously I'm going out to dinner with my family, and then we've got a barbecue on Saturday, and Sunday we all do a potluck after church, and I'll start on Monday, right? So we can really get caught in that. So that expectation of perfection, I think, is a really strong one with self-sabotaging. And then I think this might sound a little counter to what you would expect, but trying to do too much at once. It might be that someone is on a weight loss journey and needs to lose weight to become their optimal size. And I do believe that optimal sizes vary. There is no one perfect, no one size that God asks us to be. But we think, okay, and I've seen this before. I want to lose 30 pounds. And so I'm going to get up every single day at 5 a.m. and I'm going to work out. And then I'm going to have, or I'm not going to have breakfast, which, is a whole different thing. And that's fine if you want to fast. And then I'm not going to eat very much for lunch, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go gluten-free, and I'm going to take out milk, and I'm going to make sure that I have 8 servings of vegetables a day. And they just add on all of these things, and it's too much. It's overwhelming. Our brains have such a hard time, and you're the neuropsychologist, so you could maybe I'm wrong here, but that is too much to process all at once. So yeah, I mean, I know when we have weight to lose, we want it to happen yesterday. And we want to work. I'm good for about 3 days. And after 3 days, I get fatigued. I'm like, I'm tired of this. So I completely understand, but having that long-term goal, and going back to what we're talking about of like trying to take care of our bodies so we can do what we're called to start slowly. What's the easiest thing for you to do? Maybe it's just drink some more water and don't worry about that. And then maybe it's cut out the fries when you go out for hamburgers. And then maybe, so if we're drinking more water, maybe we're cutting out the fries. And then maybe we try and add an extra vegetable in with a lunch or dinner or something like that. And so taking those small steps rather than expecting everything and just jumping in, I think can really help from sabotaging us, because again, it's too much. It's process overload, and it's hard to execute. Whereas if you take one thing at a time, you're going to feel successful, and you're going to notice that, okay, now I had the water, now I had the extra vegetable, and that's going to encourage you to take that next right step for you.
Now, you and I talked about tracking our steps. What's your thought on tracking some of these new habits that you're talking about? Drinking more water, adding extra vegetables, cutting out the fries, moving our body. Is tracking a good thing? Is it a detrimental thing? Can we take it too far? What's your stance on that?
I think all of the above can be the answer. It depends on where your heart is, and it depends on your intent. There's a lot of science that validates tracking. And the book Atomic Habits by James Clear talks about, he's a real big proponent of making your check marks and doing that. And I I love check marks. I love checking things off my list. I love seeing visual progression of things. So if you are the kind of person who wants to see a check mark and it makes you feel good about your progress, then go for it. My challenge is to give yourself grace when you don't fill out all of the check mark, or when the day doesn't go as planned and you don't get a check mark. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm on the YouVersion Bible app, and I have to admit, like when I forget a day and the streak is gone, I'm like, oh man, bummer. But I also know that I'm getting in the word every day. And so I'm just not going to get hung up on that. So I think it is a wonderful tool, but it's not it should not be, that shouldn't be what guides you. What guides you is what you're wanting to do and how you're wanting to feel and how you're wanting to execute things. It's not that, well, I have to get that check mark. And that might be a good motivation and that might keep you going. But the moment we become a slave to the list, and when we feel guilty because we don't do it, that's when I think it can become detrimental. The reality is we all are motivated by different things. I have two boys, you have two boys. I bet they are motivated by four different things. And so we really have to take into account what motivates us, what we like seeing, what makes us feel good, what makes us feel guilty and shame, and try and avoid those, because what is an ideal way for me to execute things is not ideal for a friend of mine. And that's okay. That's okay.
You know, so often I talk to clients about knowing their why.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they undertaking certain goals? Why are they wanting to make changes? As a fitness professional, can you give an example of a healthy why and an unhealthy why for pursuing things like fitness and nutritional eating?
Absolutely. This has been one of my favorite things about training, particularly women over 40, because women over 40 will come to me and say, I just want to take care of myself. I've been taking care of my job, of my spouse, of my kids, of my dog, and I'm not taking care of myself. I don't care about how I look. I want to feel strong and I want to have endurance. And that makes me do a little happy dance every time. That is a wonderful why of yes, taking care of ourselves, but again, the why, the deeper why behind that. And so that way we can enjoy and thrive in all of those different roles. And that would be, I mean, you know this, but that's more of an internal and intrinsic motivation. I think the extrinsic motivations, the ones that are coming from beyond us, are the ones that can really trip us up. And so that is, well, I want to have 6-pack abs. Guess what? So do I. I don't have them. I never have. Or I want the scale to say a certain way. And having some weight loss goals for your health is absolutely good, but there's a whole lot of things that go into the scale. And so if we are defining our success based on what number we think it should be saying, then I would say that's probably not a great that's not a great goal, because that is giving something else, giving value to you beyond what you are actually doing and beyond your own actions, in terms of how you're moving your body, how you're eating, and how you relate to others in the scale of that. So I think that those are, a lot of it's more of, like I said, that I want to take care of myself because I've been taking care of everyone else. And then those, I mean, like the scale is definitely one. For those who are racers, and I know that this is a little bit tricky, but I've done half marathons, I've done triathlons, and I have definitely had goals of like, I want to place. But the reality is, there, unless you are a gold medal Olympic athlete, there is always someone faster than you. And there is always someone better than you. And having this goal of, I want to be first place in my age group, I would love that for you if that's your goal and you got it. But someone else may come in who is, who knows? I mean, they may be at a completely different level, and all of a sudden your goals are shot and you're disappointed, even though you might have run better than you ever ran.
Or you
So,
got injured. You know,
right.
so much of what we're talking about is recognizing what we don't control.
Yeah.
I want to camp on the scale issue for just a minute, because as someone who at different times in my life has wanted to lose weight, I've gotten frustrated because I haven't seen the progress on the scale. Tell us what some of those factors are that affect that number on the scale that we may not have direct control over.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's as little as like, how is your scale positioned? And depending on how sensitive it is, I mean, it might be something like that. Your hydration levels make
Yeah.
a huge difference. And to that end, digging into that a little bit more, if you, and I actually, it's funny you asked this because I just did a short Ask the Trainer episode, and it's called, Why Did I Gain 4 Pounds on a 3-Day Vacation? And so let's just take that example since that's fresh in my mind. First of all, I do say, why are you getting on the scale after, a 3-day vacation? Like what? But if you have had a lot of carbohydrates the day before, 1 gram of carbohydrate can hold up to 4 grams of water. So your body is going to be holding on to water a little bit more, and that's going to be reflected in the scale. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people have heard of, oh, it's water weight, it's water weight. Well, that is one contributing factor to that water weight. Another contributing factor is if you've had a really hard workout, your muscles may be holding on to water because number one, it's concerned about being, maybe being dehydrated because it was a really intense workout. And the other thing is water carries, water is helpful to the recovery process in your muscles. So I actually have noticed, I don't get on the scale a whole lot, but I have noticed that when I have a really strong strength training session, my weight goes up a couple pounds. And so it's that having that mindset of, okay, I was taking care of my body, and 2 pounds, it's irrelevant in this point because that's not really impacting the weight. And the other thing I would like to remind people of or point out is 1 pound of adipose. And adipose is my preferred word for body fat. This is just the tissue that we use to store energy. That's all adipose is, but it's also known as body fat. 1 pound is equivalent to 3,500 calories. That is a lot of weight. So if you go on that 3-day vacation and you come back several pounds higher, then chances are you did not consume 3,500 additional calories on top of what your body needs to survive. So there's other factors that go into that. And a lot of it really is, a lot of it can be attributed to water. I think, your hormone levels, depending on where you are in your cycle, depending on, if you're in that, menopausal, perimenopausal, I mean, like your hormones have a really big impact on your weight as well on a monthly fluctuation. I mean, who among us, and I'm speaking to the women here, but has not experienced some weight gain right before her monthly cycle. I mean, that's the kind of thing too, just to remember that scale's going to fluctuate up and down. It's a trend. It's something to maybe kind of watch. I would say no more than once a week if you're going to do it that often. And that is one element of your success.
I like that. I mean, other things affected too. Sodium.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even get to that. Yeah.
Milk? And are you weighing at the same time every day? I mean, I think we could camp out on this for a long time, but I think it's so crucial not to let one factor like the number on the scale tell you whether or not you are successful, whether or not you are worthy, whether or not you are important, whether or not you are healthy. But we get so fixated on the number on the scale. And I think that's so detrimental. That's got to be one of the rules that we've got to break for our own good, is the rule that number determines.
Yes, that's actually
how important I am.
That's actually, so the title of that chapter in my book is "It's a Waste of Time If I Don't Lose Weight."
Oh,
Yes. And so I dig into that a lot, because it actually is not a waste of time. And there's a lot of different elements. I mean, and really came from a communication I had with someone who's new on her weight loss journey, and new on her health journey, I would rather say. And she said, I just feel like this is a waste of time. I'm not losing any weight. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. And I mean, another element to that is, who are you influencing? What are your kids seeing? Do they see you working out? Do your coworkers hear talk, you discussing your time at the gym, and they think, gosh, if she can do that, or if he can do that, I can too. Or maybe I can do a little bit. You influence, your sphere of influence is so much stronger. I mean, there's a lot of other things to be focusing on. How are you sleeping? If you're exercising more and you're sleeping more, I mean, I know how important sleep is. There's a lot of really great health benefits to that, even if the scale is totally neutral.
how's your stamina?
Yeah.
How much longer can you go throughout the day before you feel like you got to take a nap? Yeah, there are so many other ways to gauge our health that I think are more healthy to focus on. So I'm glad that we've been spending time today talking about the rules that we need to break. Friends, we're going to take a real quick commercial break, but when we come back after the break, I want to hear Amy share her hope-filled perspective for you. We'll be right back. Welcome back to your hope-filled perspective, where today we've been talking about the rules that we need to break for our own good, for our health. Amy, what kind of encouragement would you give to the person who feels like they really are doing the best they can, but when they look around, they feel like it's not good enough?
Well, the first piece of encouragement I would give is, you are doing a great job. Your body is worthy of trying new things and being taken care of. And that might look different than someone else, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect, because what is perfect anyway? I think that if there was a perfect way of taking care of our health, we would see that somewhere in the Bible. And yes, there are some Old Testament covenant rules that God asked people to do in terms of, particularly in terms of food. But Jesus gave us the grace, and we don't have to do that anymore. And so, I would just encourage people to really, kind of like we talked about with examining your why, and keeping the long-term perspective in mind, and that, why are we taking care of ourselves? And I want to look good too. I mean, I'll be real honest with that. But more than wanting to look good, I want to be able to respond quickly, as well as possible, to whatever God is asking me to do. And that might be something this afternoon. It might be something next week. It might be something 10 years from now. And so, taking care of my body in that way, and remembering the why, and the why that God has given us, with honoring our temple, that would be my hope, is that it doesn't have to be perfect, and remember the long-term goal in mind.
So, if a listener today is struggling with their body image or their physical health, what hope-filled perspective would you offer them?
Take one step, and then take the next right step for you, and then take the next right one. And remember that your body and you are made in the image of God. And God was not a certain height. God was not a certain weight. God was not a certain body shape or body color. We are all made in God's image, and allowing ourselves to personally assess what is right for us, not what's right according to BuzzFeed, and not what's right according to the morning shows, but what is right for our uniquely created bodies. And taking that next step, I think, is what's going to allow us to feel successful, and give us encouragement for that next step and for that next calling that God may have for us.
You know, it reminds me of a scripture. It comes from Galatians 1:10, and it says, "Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." And that sums up what we've been talking about today, because
Mm-hmm.
if we're focused on meeting all those rules that Cosmopolitan and Vogue and the morning shows put out there, we will never measure up.
Yeah.
But God wants us to realize that we are fearfully and wonderfully made in his image, and he's not looking for a perfect body, but he is looking for people to recognize that he's given us a temple, and we get to choose how we treat that temple.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Amy, I'm so glad that you're on the program today so that we can really talk about breaking some of these rules that hold us captive. Friend, I also want you to hear that there is a place for grace and forgiveness in your health journey. You're going to mess up. We all do. But extend yourself the same forgiveness that you would extend to a friend or a family member, because God has already forgiven you. Amy, thank you so much for sharing from your wisdom, your experience, your expertise to help us learn some of these rules that we need to break for our own good. Friend, if this has encouraged you in any way, would you please consider sharing it with a friend who's not on a health journey right now, right? And consider going to my website, Dr. Michelle B., to look at the resources we have there. We're going to provide a link to Amy's book, as well as her previous blog posts and some other resources that we have for you. Go to drmichelleb.com to look for the show notes, and consider leaving a rating and a review for the podcast to help other people find a biblically based, hope-filled perspective. Until we talk again next week, may you have a hope-filled week.